Rome's mightiest enemy wasn't a famous general or emperor. It was a barbarian from the vast, untamed plains of Central Asia. Attila the Hun, synonymous with brutality, ambition, and relentless conquest. To the Romans, his name alone stirred fear, embodying a threat that loomed larger than any single man or army. But who was Attila, and how did he come to be known as the Scourge of God, the terror of Rome? The Roman Empire, a realm that stretched across 3 continents, seemed untouchable, its power and influence unrivaled. Yet even this mighty empire was not immune to outside threats. For years, it had faced invasions, political turmoil, and economic strain, but none of these threats could compare to the unyielding storm that was Attila, who swept across Europe like a dark cloud, leaving ruin in his wake. It was the year 451 AD. The once glorious Roman Empire was now a shadow of its former self, plagued by internal strife, political corruption, and invasions from all sides. Amidst this chaos, Attila rose to command the Huns, a confederation of tribes known for their nomadic lifestyle, brutal raids, and fearless warriors. But Attila wanted more than power. He wanted Rome itself, a city so ancient and revered that many thought it would stand forever. Attila, however, had other plans. What drove him to set his sights on Rome? Was it mere conquest, a thirst for wealth and glory, or perhaps a deeper hunger for destruction that could only be satisfied by toppling one of the greatest civilizations of all time? And how did this fearsome warrior, born in the distant grasslands, rally an army that would bring Rome to its knees? As we unravel the tale of Attila the Hun, we'll explore the cunning tactics and ruthless strategies he employed to terrorize an empire, his shocking alliances, and the infamous siege that left Rome trembling. It's a journey through betrayal, devastation, and one man's ambition that left an indelible mark on history. Attila's journey is a testament to the power of a leader driven by unrelenting ambition. So, who was Attila, and how close did he come to fulfilling his vision of domination? Let's find out. Attila wasn't born into a life of power and privilege, yet his rise to the throne of the Huns marked the beginning of a new era of terror across Europe. From an early age, Attila was shaped by the brutal world around him, one of survival, fierce competition, and relentless ambition. His family belonged to the ruling elite of the Huns, but leadership in this culture was earned, not inherited. The Huns were a confederation of nomadic tribes with roots in the vast steppes of Central Asia. Known for their unmatched horsemanship and skilled archers, the Huns were a force that traditional armies found hard to counter. They moved swiftly and struck without warning, raiding settlements and disappearing as quickly as they arrived. This ability to vanish and reappear gave them a reputation as ghostly marauders, and it was within this environment that Attila grew into the man who would eventually lead them. While Rome clung to the splendor of cities and monuments, Attila thrived in the wilderness, a stark reminder that the empire's greatest threat came from beyond the reach of its own civilization. By the time Attila came of age, the Huns were already feared throughout Eastern Europe. They had entered into alliances with the Eastern Roman Empire, trading peace for hefty tributes, and often acted as mercenaries for both Roman and barbarian causes. In fact, Attila's early years were spent learning Roman military tactics and observing Roman politics. He understood their strengths, but, more importantly, he recognized their vulnerabilities. His insights into Roman politics and military tactics would later become powerful tools as he set his sights on Rome, allowing him to exploit weaknesses where the Romans thought themselves strong. Attila's ascent to leadership wasn't immediate. He first ruled jointly with his brother Bleda, who shared Attila's thirst for power. Together, they expanded their influence, consolidating control over the various Hun tribes and pushing into new territories. But tensions simmered between the two brothers, with Attila's ambition burning hotter than Bleda's. In a twist that has since become legend, Attila eventually seized power by allegedly assassinating Bleda. Some say it was a necessary act, a brutal decision to solidify his authority and ensure there would be no rival to his rule. With his brother gone, Attila commanded the Huns alone. He knew that his people thrived on conquest, and he wasted no time in launching campaigns that would stretch from the Balkans to Gaul. He carved a path through Europe, capturing cities and razing settlements to the ground. His army grew larger, his alliances stronger, and his fame, or rather, his infamy, spread like wildfire. Attila's leadership style was ruthless but effective. He ruled with a combination of fear and respect, gaining loyalty by rewarding his warriors with the spoils of war. He was both a shrewd strategist and a charismatic leader, inspiring his men to follow him into the jaws of battle. But he also showed no mercy to those who opposed him. Cities that refused to surrender were left in ruins, their inhabitants either slaughtered or sold into slavery. Under Attila, the Huns were more than a nomadic tribe. They became a war machine with a singular purpose: to dominate. Driven by a thirst for power and glory, Attila's ambitions soon extended beyond the mere raiding of border towns. He envisioned a Hun empire that could rival Rome itself. With each victory, Attila moved closer to the empire, a storm gathering on the horizon that Rome, even in its weakened state, could scarcely ignore. His next target was clear, and it was no longer enough to merely demand tribute. Attila was preparing for something much larger, a direct assault on the heart of the Roman Empire. And with each victory, he inched closer to making his vision a reality. But what would happen when Attila's unstoppable force met the seemingly immovable object that was Rome? By the time Attila's ambitions turned toward Rome, he had already established a reputation for destruction across Eastern Europe. But conquering the Roman Empire required a shift in tactics. Attila needed to be more than a fierce warrior. He had to be a cunning strategist, capable of navigating both the battlefield and the complex web of Roman politics. Attila's campaigns against Rome would showcase not just his military prowess, but also his strategic mind, as he meticulously dismantled Rome's defenses piece by piece. Attila's first major campaign began by targeting the Eastern Roman Empire, where he demanded massive tributes to keep his forces at bay. The Eastern Romans, who had long dealt with barbarian threats, initially believed they could buy Attila's peace. They were wrong. Attila seized the moment, launching a series of brutal raids that devastated the cities along the Danube River. He plundered towns, razed fortifications, and left entire settlements in ruin. By demonstrating his military might, he made it clear that paying tribute would only buy temporary peace. True security required submission. The devastation wrought by Attila's forces pushed the Eastern Roman Emperor Theodosius II into a corner. Desperate to avoid further bloodshed, he agreed to a massive payout, one of the largest ever, to buy a fragile peace. But Attila had bigger plans. He knew that as long as Rome remained divided between East and West, its defenses were weakened. Attila then turned his sights on the Western Roman Empire, ruled by the aging Valentinian III. Unlike the East, the Western Empire was already stretched thin, its resources depleted, and its borders crumbling under pressure from various barbarian groups. With each victory, Attila pushed Rome further into a state of desperation, forcing its leaders to make impossible decisions in a futile attempt to preserve what was left of their crumbling empire. His next move was calculated and precise. In 450 AD, he forged an unlikely alliance with Gaiseric, the king of the Vandals. This alliance was more than just a partnership. It was a powerful statement of Attila's influence. Gaiseric, who had a long-standing feud with the Western Romans, saw an opportunity in Attila's campaigns to weaken his enemies. Together, they plotted to dismantle the fragile Western Empire, dividing its territories and resources among themselves. To further justify his invasion, Attila claimed he was betrothed to Honoria, the sister of Valentinian III. Honoria, seeking to escape an unwanted marriage, had sent Attila a plea for help along with a ring. Seizing this as a pretext, Attila declared that he now had a legitimate claim to half of the Western Roman Empire as dowry. Though his claim was absurd to Roman officials, it served as an effective propaganda tool, rallying his troops and sowing confusion among the Roman ranks. As Attila marched into Gaul, he encountered fierce resistance from the Romans and their allies, the Visigoths, led by their king, Theodoric I. This culminated in the infamous Battle of the Catalonian Plains, one of the most brutal confrontations of the era. The Romans and Visigoths fought side by side in a rare moment of unity, determined to halt Attila's advance. It was a bloody battle, with heavy casualties on both sides, but ultimately, Attila was forced to retreat. Despite this setback, Attila's reputation as an unstoppable force remained intact. His retreat was not a surrender. It was a strategic withdrawal, allowing him to regroup and prepare for the next assault. Whether forging alliances or wielding sheer force, Attila displayed a unique ability to adapt his tactics, exploiting every weakness he found in the Roman defense. In 452 AD, as Attila's forces advanced through Italy, it became clear that he had set his sights on Rome itself. The Roman Empire, already weakened and fractured, could barely muster a defense against the relentless Hun armies. City after city fell, as Attila carved a path of destruction, bringing devastation to northern Italy. His army's ruthless efficiency left towns in ashes and citizens fleeing for their lives, their homes reduced to smoking ruins. It was a scene of horror, one that seemed like it would culminate in the total destruction of Rome. Attila's motivations for attacking Rome were complex. Some say it was a quest for ultimate glory, while others believe he sought revenge on the Western Empire for perceived betrayals and insults. The Western Empire had failed to respect the agreements they had made with Attila in previous years, and their dismissive attitude only fueled his resolve. By this point, Attila was no longer content with merely extracting tribute or claiming nominal territories. He wanted to make a statement, one that would echo through history. Rome, once the proud center of the ancient world, now stood vulnerable, its defenses in tatters. The Roman Senate was in a state of panic, with senators and officials scrambling to negotiate a peace that could save their city from ruin. Meanwhile, Emperor Valentinian III had retreated from Rome, leaving the city in the hands of its leaders and the desperate citizens who remained. Fear gripped the city as rumors spread of the atrocities committed by Attila's forces. Tales of entire villages slaughtered, of churches burned to the ground, and of the merciless Huns who showed no compassion. As Attila's forces neared the gates of Rome, an unlikely figure emerged to meet him, Pope Leo I. It's said that Pope Leo, accompanied by a delegation of high-ranking church officials, went out to meet Attila, unarmed and dressed in simple robes. It was an extraordinary moment, a humble religious leader standing before the feared Scourge of God, appealing for mercy. Accounts vary on what exactly transpired during this encounter. Some say that Pope Leo spoke with such eloquence and moral authority that Attila was moved by his words. Others claim that Attila saw a vision of St. Peter and St. Paul, standing beside Leo and threatening divine retribution if he did not spare the city. There is also a practical explanation. Attila's army was exhausted, weakened by disease, and running low on supplies. An outbreak of plague had swept through his camp, and his men were demoralized by the hardships of the long campaign. Facing the risk of further attrition and knowing that a prolonged siege could backfire, Attila decided to withdraw. Regardless of the reason, Attila's decision to spare Rome had a profound impact, and his retreat was seen as a miraculous victory for the city. The city stood, but its survival marked the end of an era. Rome's walls were intact, yet the illusion of its invincibility lay in ruins, revealing a shadow of the empire that once ruled the world. Though he left Rome unscathed, Attila's path of destruction had already left a deep scar on Italy. Cities were left in ruins, crops destroyed, and entire communities displaced. For the Roman people, Attila's invasion was a dark reminder of how fragile their world had become. The threat of total annihilation had loomed over them, and the near-mythical figure of Pope Leo meeting Attila came to symbolize divine intervention and the enduring power of faith in the face of overwhelming terror. Rome had survived the ordeal, but its spirit was shattered, with citizens haunted by the memory of Attila's approach, a constant reminder of their empire's fading glory. The withdrawal marked the end of Attila's grand ambitions in Italy, but it also represented a turning point for Rome. The city had survived by a thread, but it was a symbolic victory, one that restored a measure of hope to a weary people. Yet in the aftermath, Rome faced the difficult task of rebuilding, not just its cities, but its identity, as the realization dawned that the era of Roman invincibility was over. Attila's siege had shattered the illusion of Rome's eternal dominance, revealing the empire as vulnerable, exposed, and on the brink of collapse. Attila returned to his homeland, but his legacy in Italy was one of fear and devastation. His name became synonymous with the barbarians who would ultimately bring about the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Rome may have been spared, but the scars of Attila's siege remained, a chilling reminder of the price of survival in a world dominated by warlords and conquerors. Attila's retreat left Rome weakened, its exposed fragility a beacon for other barbarian tribes who would soon descend upon what remained of the once great empire. For Rome, the encounter with Attila was a defining moment, a brush with death that would foreshadow the challenges yet to come. Attila's withdrawal marked the last time Rome would ever face him, but the echoes of his campaign lingered as a stark symbol of the empire's vulnerability and the dawn of a new, uncertain age. Attila's campaigns left a lasting mark, not only on Rome but on the entire European continent. His destruction reached far beyond the cities he razed or the people he conquered. Attila changed the very fabric of the Roman Empire, exposing its vulnerabilities and shattering the myth of its invincibility. After his campaigns, the Roman Empire was never the same, and his legacy continued to influence events long after his death. In the years following his withdrawal from Rome, Attila's reputation grew into something almost mythical. The Romans and their allies saw him as the embodiment of chaos and destruction, a symbol of barbarian power that threatened the stability of the civilized world. His invasions had demonstrated to other tribes that the Roman Empire could be challenged, and even terrorized. This emboldened other groups, from the Vandals to the Goths, who now saw opportunities to carve out their own territories from the remains of Rome. Attila's path of destruction served as an example for other tribes, who now saw that Rome's power could be challenged, and even shattered. Attila's influence extended beyond his conquests, altering the course of history for the tribes he had united. After his death in 453 AD, the Hun Empire he had built began to crumble. Internal rivalries and the absence of Attila's strong leadership left his empire vulnerable. His sons struggled to maintain control, and soon the unity he had forged fell apart, with various Hun tribes breaking off and scattering across Europe. The Huns, who had once struck fear into the hearts of emperors, gradually faded as a dominant force. Yet, even as the Hun Empire dissolved, Attila's legacy lived on. His campaigns against Rome set a precedent for future invasions, sparking a series of barbarian incursions that would eventually contribute to the empire's collapse. Within a few decades, Rome itself would fall, sacked by the very barbarian tribes Attila had inspired. The Vandals, for instance, would go on to capture and plunder Rome in 455 AD, an event that symbolized the definitive end of Roman dominance. The empire that had once ruled the known world was now being dismantled piece by piece, a process that Attila had helped to accelerate. Attila also left a lasting cultural impact. In the centuries that followed, stories of his brutal campaigns and unrelenting ambition became part of European folklore. Legends of Attila portrayed him as a larger-than-life figure, a villain and an anti-hero whose name would forever be associated with the fall of Rome. Medieval chroniclers, fascinated by his story, depicted him as a divine instrument of punishment, sent to humble a decadent empire. To some, he became a symbol of divine retribution. To others, a figure of almost supernatural power, whose life was destined to reshape the ancient world. To this day, his name is synonymous with ruthless power, and he remains a symbol of the unstoppable force that ultimately brought down one of the greatest empires in history. In the end, Attila's legacy was a paradox. He failed to conquer Rome, yet he succeeded in bringing the empire to the brink of collapse. His actions exposed the fragility of Rome's power and opened the door for the wave of invasions that would eventually erase the Western Roman Empire from the map. Though the Huns themselves would fade into obscurity, Attila's legacy endured, a reminder of the empire's vulnerability and the relentless forces that reshaped the ancient world. As we close this chapter on Attila, we remember him not just as a conqueror, but as a symbol of a world in transition. His life, his battles, and his campaigns against Rome marked the beginning of the end for the ancient empire, a turning point in history that would pave the way for the rise of new powers. Attila may not have lived to see the full impact of his actions, but his legacy lived on, forever etched into the story of a fallen empire and the age that followed. Though centuries have passed, Attila remains a figure of awe and terror, a testament to the profound impact of one man's ambition on the course of history. So, as the story of Rome and Attila fades into the annals of history, we leave it as a tale of ambition, resilience, and the relentless forces that shape empires and the men who dare to challenge them. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts on the legacy of Attila the Hun in the comments below.